Welcome back. Today we have another review for you guys. We are doing a TV show review for Trollhunters Season 2. If you guys didn't see, we actually uploaded our review for Trollhunters Season 1 review last week on the channel, and so you guys can go back and check that out before you watch this one. As always, our TV show reviews are always filled with spoilers because it's just so much easier to talk TV shows that way, and we can hop in.
Season 2 is actually a lot shorter than Season 1. It's about half the episode count, which is interesting. Although I think it worked well because Season 1 had this weird mid-season break where it almost completely switched to a new storyline. So it was almost like 2 seasons in Season 1.
Yeah, I agree. Because they call them parts on Netflix as well. So part 1 felt like it had 2 seasons worth. And there was even an episode before they switched where it was like, this feels like a season finale. And we're only halfway through. But this one is a lot shorter. There's a lot less episodes, but I think it paid off for the show.
I agree. This season, you already have the team very much melded together. Everybody has their parts to play. Everybody has their own place on the team. I think that allowed this season to delve a lot more into personal character growth and also just into the Trollhunter world and the evils that are within it. And it was just really interesting to watch because we didn't have to spend so much time on setup and people coming together.
So this season starts out with Jim actually using the amulet to transform into a different kind of the last season ended with him transforming into the red version of his armor.
Yeah, and he's stuck in the Darklands at the beginning of the
Yeah,
season.
and so he's actually in the Darklands for the first 3 episodes
Something
of this
like
season. And he's stuck there trying to get out and do things and find Enrique, Claire's brother, while the rest of them are trying to get him out.
And something I mentioned, or one of us mentioned in the first season review of ours, is that this team around Jim, they stand on their own and everybody does their own thing. There's no people who are just kind of there but don't do anything important. And that was really evident this season when Jim is off in the Darklands and not able to have access to them, and they're keeping up everything by themselves. They're hunting bad things, they're keeping their city safe, and they're also trying to find Jim. So you can tell that they mesh well together and they stand on their own even without the leader.
To the point when Jim comes back out, he's like, I'm ready to get back to troll hunting, and there's nothing to do. We've already handled it.
This.
Yeah, we did it all. But I think it's cool because you get a sense that all the characters really got to grow a little bit without Jim being there, and ends up having a little bit more depth for all of the characters across the board this season. So this season's plot ends up having 2 main focuses. Number 1, it's actually Jim facing off against Gunmar in the Darklands and out of the Darklands. And also, a lot of the troll politics are much bigger at play. There's actually a lot of focus on the tribunal, which is all the head ones, and Gunmar's escape. And overall, I thought the plot was pretty good. I think the shorter length was good for the plot and didn't have quite as much filler as season 1 did.
Yeah, I would agree. They definitely got from point A to Z a lot quicker with these things. And something else we mentioned in our season 1 review is just how deep and enriched this Trollhunter world is in this series, and that definitely was displayed a lot more in this season due to the politics and all that, because that was something we saw a little bit of in season 1, but not a whole lot. So they just further enriched that part of the story. We mentioned some of the characters already, especially the team around Jim, but we want to talk about them in a little bit more detail. I would say character development-wise, the main core team doesn't change too much.
Yeah, I would say not too much. I feel like they all get to grow, and they all have their own little arcs.
Yes.
I think Claire by far has the biggest jump.
Favorite.
And so Claire has the shadow staff from season 1, and you see her grow more into her own, where she's kind of in charge when Jim's not there. She's running the show. Toby's still playing sidekick. But by the end, she ends up sacrificing herself almost. She ends up being okay for now by using that staff, and they say, oh, it'll corrupt your soul and stuff, and she does it anyways to save all the trolls when Gunmar is killing everyone. And I think her arc is pretty cool. She ends up being quite the badass.
Well, not only that, but with her staff, it's very connected to her emotions, so she has to learn how to tap into that in order to be able to save people and to do her job, essentially. And there are a lot of high stakes this season, and that is definitely shown by her and having to get pushed. And her and not Enrique's relationship furthers even more, and I just love them so much. And like he pushes her really well with that, and it was just really cool to see her come into her own with her own ability and weapon. We also see the return of Arg in this season, because did he...
Yeah, he was still stoned.
Okay, from last season.
Yeah.
We watched these all together, so the plot line's been a little blurred. But, so we see Arg come back, which was great, because I was really sad when they killed him off in season 1, because I loved him. So, and I think he was a really good balance to the team. Mm-hmm. So I'm really glad they brought him back, and him and Toby are back together as a duo.
I liked how they brought him back, and at first, the spirit of the last Trollhunter, possesses Arg, and I was like, oh gosh, is this just how he's going to be brought back? And I was upset. And then it turns out it was just him afterwards, and I think he brings good balance to the team, and the team doesn't work as well when everyone's just sad all the time, and everyone's sad.
We also have a lot of character development for Blinky and a lot of backstory for him, because we see his brother come into play, who he was thought was long dead, and his brother is actually played by Mark Hamill, voice acting, and Mark Hamill is wonderful. But, so that was really interesting to see how he dealt with his evil brother and all of that, and just his struggles within his own self and how that affected the team as they went.
Yeah, and by the end, he ends up having huge development, and because Vendel is killed by the tribunal lady who is evil. Who's
played by Angelica Houston.
Yeah, I don't remember the character's name, but he ends up becoming leader of the trolls at the end, because they escape the Heartstone Market? Troll Market. Yeah, the Heartstone is the big thing in the middle of Troll Market. As they escape Troll Market, they're like, oh, well, who's going to lead us? And Jim bestows Blinky with the honor, so I think big things are in store for him leading all of the trolls. It'll
also be very interesting to see next season how that plays out, because Vendel was a very different type of ruler than I think Blinky will be, and like we said in our season 1 review, Blinky is a little bit of a mess. But he's like an endearing, lovable mess. So, I don't know, we'll see how that goes. But yes, he did have very big character development. I said core characters didn't have that much development. I take that back. They did. But we also had some more secondary character development as well. So 2 of the smaller characters in season 1, which was Steve and Eli, there it is.
Yeah.
They're 2 classmates from season 1 who are just kind of fringe characters. You got Eli, who's the one that gets beat up. He does the older kids' homework, all that jazz. And then Steve is the typical jock bully dude. And they end up having this weird team up in this season that I was not on board with at first, and ended up loving by the end of it.
And we will get to how they introduced that, because they had when we start talking about some specific episodes, because some of the episodes this season were great.
But yeah, with this, the core characters, side characters, I think, again, Guillermo del Toro just does all characters really well, even the fringe ones. And that was, again, a theme of this season.
And ultimately, I felt like Jim actually had a lot of development as well. Because he's on his own and he has to learn to kind of do things. We said in season 1 that he was kind of the typical whiny protagonist. Oh, these things just happen to me.
Which he still has in this season, but he does a lot of growing up in season 2.
And I would say especially the last couple episodes when he basically gets Ghost of Christmas Past. And I think it's cool to kind of see him come into his own, accept the amulet and be like, no, this is what I need to do. And I thought that was a really powerful episode when he was he was no longer the troll hunter in this alternate reality, and he's still I guess I have to go fight Gunmar with this regular sword as a regular dude. And he was going to get stomped, but he went to do it anyways before he poofed back into normal reality. But you had some cool episodes where he really grew into his own.
A big change to Jim's suit in this season was this introduction of stones that he could add to it. It's very Infinity Gauntlet-esque. But he can add these stones to his amulet and they give him certain abilities. And because of that, this resulted in some very funny one-off episodes that had to do with these specific Jim that were put in the amulet, and oh my gosh, I think there were 2 specific episodes right back to back that we were just dying laughing, just genuinely hilarious.
The first one actually being the introduction of Steve and Eli kind of to the team, where it was so interesting. So the way they did this is there was one episode, and I don't want to spoil too much, but
this is spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers. There's one episode where throughout the episode, things just happen and they don't quite add up. And we were watching, we're like, what? So, like, they all had flower babies from their school, and, like, he clearly destroys his, like, Toby destroys his, and then they, like, have it later, and they're like, oh, I found it on the ground, and you're like,
and then
what?
Steve comes up and, like, throws, like, a milkshake or something on Jim randomly.
For no
we're
reason.
like, where did we miss something? I think at one point during this episode we actually rewound, and we're like, did we miss something? But we did not. But then it turns out that the next episode was from Steve and Eli's perspective, so you got to go back and see everything that just happened, which is a kind of a cliche with shows like this, but I think it was really well done, and, like, I was like, I get it now. It was entertaining.
I would just say it was so unexpected from, like, an animated show to have that continuity between 2 episodes, because normally they're still kind of standalone, even though they're continuing a plot, and that was just so funny to, like, watch one, be confused, and then roll into the next one and be like, oh, it was hilarious. I really enjoyed that one.
There was also one, I think it was after that one.
It was right after.
It was right after that one, where you have a certain stone that's put in the amulet that takes pieces of Jim's personality and puts them in, like, a self-contained person. So it makes copies of him, but it's copies of him that only have one specific, like, personality trait. So the one that's overly emotional, the one that is romantic, the one that is, like, the soldier. Like, oh my gosh, this was my favorite episode from this season. Just absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, at this barbecue with 20 different Jims running around, and they were all so funny. The Spanish-speaking Jim.
Oh, hilarious.
The anxiety Jim was hilarious.
Anxiety Jim was my favorite because I relate.
And they just had so many episodes this season that did, like, different things and weren't just, like, the normal standard episode.
Well, and with that specific episode, I really appreciate that they steered clear of some cliches that came with that, because at this barbecue was Jim meeting Claire's parents. Well, they've met before, but having more of a, like, this is my boyfriend and introduction thing. And I was worried that they were going to have Claire be that typical, like, I don't know what's wrong with you, and now I'm pissed, and, like, misunderstanding cliche.
Yeah.
But she picked up on it. She was like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna organize these, and you're gonna fit. And she, like, took charge and, like, knew what to do. And she didn't blame Jim for it, which I really expected her to do, just because of the way typical TV shows go with this. And at the end of it, she's like, they'll get over it. It's fine. Like, she handled it the best she could, and, like, she's just a very cool, stable character. And the whole episode was just great.
Yeah, overall, all the episodes, I think, were much better this season, and there's so many different things, and it was a much more engaging watch than season 1. Some episodes of season 1 were pretty weak, some were kind of filler, whereas this one didn't feel like it had any filler. The main plot was always moving forward, and there was, like, a lot of funny and hilarious things. I feel like constantly upended my expectations for, like, an episode, so by the end I just had no idea what to expect. As the show continued to improve, like, in other areas, the animation style also improved, and we didn't notice it till, like, the 3rd episode, so it might have started at the beginning of the season, but at one point, I go, everyone looks shinier, and, like, Jim's hair color got darker, and they essentially gave everyone, like, new character models, and I think the animation style in general got a little bit crisper, a little crispier, yeah, and a little just more detailed. And I thought it added a lot.
I agree. That was definitely an improvement from season 1 to season 2. I think this is a show that definitely just improves as it goes on. And I'm very interested to see how season 3 goes, especially because, as we mentioned in our season 1 review, they don't have Anton Yelchin anymore after season 2. I think they had finished his voice acting in season 2 before he passed away. So, and I don't think they've announced who they've replaced him with.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. We do know the season 3 is confirmed, I think, for early 2019.
I believe so.
Yeah, so like a year from now, season 2 just came out in December, and we'll have to see how that goes. I do think in terms of inside the show, there's a lot of interesting things happening for the characters, and to see how they end up actually, like, defeating Gunmar and what's going to happen along the way.
I would love to see further on in seasons, depending on how long the show goes, them moving away from the Gunmar villain and having new villains that aren't, like, in addition to that villain, but just completely separate, personally.
Which I agree, because I do think that, honestly, in season 1, Angarot was more compelling than Blular. So when they introduced him, you're like, oh, who's this cool guy? And he actually had a cool story that, you know, came back around. So yeah, I think being able to explore the world a little bit more and not have to rely on the big bad Gunmar will be interesting if they can do that. Overall, this has quickly become, I think, one of our favorite animated shows, especially on Netflix. I know Brittany's not a big animated show watcher. She likes animated movies.
Not because I don't like it. I just haven't gotten into it as much. Something I want to work on.
So This one was surprising. Like I said, when we first started season 1, I didn't have that high of expectations, and I know she had watched season 1 and enjoyed it.
I already knew it was good.
Yeah, but like I said before, I feel like the show just continues to improve and have more entertaining and funnier episodes, better writing, better pacing, better animation. Everything just continues to improve, and that's really cool to see in a show, and it makes it really enjoyable to watch.
It's also very interesting branching out for Guillermo del Toro. Has he done a TV series before? If he has, I don't think it's been animated. So this is something completely different from him. And as longtime lovers of his work, it was just really interesting to see how successful it was off the bat. Because I feel like sometimes, I mean, when directors or creators or artists try a new work or new style of things, it doesn't always land the first time. And I think this has been excellent for a first move into this. And maybe I'm wrong and this isn't his first time doing something like this, but it's the first one I've heard of.
It's definitely his first animated show. The Strain is based on his books,
Correct.
And I think
Yes,
he was
I
involved in
forgot
that. But a live-action vampire show is way different
from an animated troll kid
than an
show.
animated, show on Netflix. So I think that is a very different undertaking for him.
As we've mentioned before, we do plan on doing more TV show reviews this year on this channel. So if you have any that you know of coming out this year that you're really interested in our thoughts on, let us know down in the comments. We would love to chat with you about it. Also, let us know what you think of this show and what you thought of season 2. We want to talk to you about all of your opinions. And if you like our TV show reviews, please thumbs up this video. That is how we kind of determine what videos you guys are enjoying most and want to see more of. And as always, subscribe if you like our content. We always like interacting with you guys more. And if you want to see more of our other types of videos, we do have a lot more than just TV and movie reviews. You can check those out right over there. And we'll see you guys in our next video. Bye!